Hello and welcome back to Dave's Movie Diary. Today I'm talking about Alphaville, a French film made in 1965 by legendary French director Jean-Luc Godard. I have seen Breathless a couple of times, the second time quite recently, and really loved it. And I thought this was a good chance to keep exploring more of Godard's work. I actually tried watching this film about 6 months ago on Canopy, but for some reason the version I was watching, I don't know, was corrupted, and I just lost it after a while. I couldn't keep watching it. It dropped out, so came back to it now, and also I've been watching a fair bit of France in the World Cup. Maybe I was influenced there, in the mood for more French culture, which is always a good thing. There's a lot going on in this film. It's, like I said, it was made in 1965. It's set sometime in the future and centers around the character of Lemmy Caution, played by Eddie Constantine, who was actually born in the US. I did look into this film a little bit more than usual just to try and find out what was going on, to be honest. It was clear to me that he was there to track down Professor Von Braun in this futuristic society called Alphaville, that seems to be in a different, well, in the film it says it's in a different galaxy than the outer countries, and the outer countries are apparently Earth as we know it. There seems to be a place like New York called Nuevo York. There's a place a bit like Tokyo called Tokyo Rama. Things are kind of the same but kind of different. There's definitely some changes, and I got the impression from the get-go that although Lemmy is posing as a journalist writing for Pravda, he's actually there to likely eliminate Professor Von Braun and destroy Alpha 60. Alpha 60 appears to be like a supercomputer that controls everything, or is the font of all knowledge. And as Lemmy goes amongst his business in Alphaville, he encounters various people, including Natasha, Professor Von Braun's daughter. She seems to have been heavily conditioned by this new society and doesn't really understand much about human emotion. We find out later that she was actually born in the outer countries, but was brought there by her father, the professor, and he seems to have set up this new society. And Lemmy's mission appears to be about trying to dismantle the entire system from within, and he goes along trying to find the professor, and while he's doing that, we get a glimpse of this new world and what its morals are, what its virtues are, its pros and cons. Jean-Luc Godard, legendary filmmaker, he's often referred to by a lot of the Hollywood filmmakers, especially in the 70s, as being a massive influence on them. And it seems to be that what have I seen? I've seen Breathless, I've seen Contempt, the one with Brigitte Bardot and Jack Palance, and I've seen this one. I'm aware of Weekend. I don't think I've seen it. He was really big in the 60s in particular. The 60s were really his key decade. He made a few films with, I think, Jean-Paul Belmondo, who's the main star in Breathless. And they were a great combination. It seemed to me that from watching Breathless, more so than this one, that Godard just seemed to shoot scenes naturally without worrying too much about being cinematic. This one's slightly different. This one does have a bit more structure to it, but Breathless was like it was a breath of fresh air, because it's so wild and free flowing, and I felt like a bit of a street character just watching that, like I was with Belmondo as he's trying to evade the police and uh, going to find the girl that he recalls. And anyway, that's a different film, but yeah, he made a massive splash on Hollywood influences, and so it's a great thing that he came along. The world that he creates here is interesting to me because there's nothing overtly futuristic about it. It's I'm assuming it's just filmed in Paris, but the locations that Goddard chooses, the hotels, the offices, the corridors, um, they all look quite modern, and he just appears to have chosen well. Nothing looks dated or too dated in this film. It does have a futuristic look about it, but the society does feel completely alien because of how the people speak and behave, like they have been not lobotomized, but definitely conditioned to remove overt emotions or humanistic traits, irrationality, and that's referred to by the characters. And so this new world seems to be really created through ideas and dialogue, not through the sets. And, we're talking a good probably 30 years before CGI really got up and running. So yeah, I'm keen to really flesh out some more of these 60s films that Goddard made. Films like Band of Outsiders and Pierre Le Faux. Apologies for my terrible pronunciation. And Weekend, of course, as well. I just had a quick look through his films. I didn't recognize too many from the 70s and 80s, so I feel like it's really the 60s where Goddard was more relevant. One thing that came to mind as I was watching Lemmy Caution's journey, as he's sort of piecing together bits of information about Alphaville, about Alpha 60, and about the Professor, kind of recalled memories of Martin Sheen's Captain Willard in Apocalypse Now, as he's heading down the river to assassinate Colonel Kurtz, the Brando character. There are some similarities, that they're both outsiders entering a kind of closed, self-contained world in a way, with its own rules. They're both on a mission to reach and confront a central figure, and in both these films, the journey is really about ideas as much as sort of physical action. I thought, of course, there are differences. The key difference is that Willard learns things as we do, whereas Lemmy seems to arrive with a whole lot more information, and is never really fazed by anything. That's one of the amazing things about Eddie Constantine's performance. He just rolls with everything, and he has this implacable look. And instead of discovering the world of Alphaville together, I felt like I was just constantly trying to keep up with Lemmy. As I mentioned, Eddie Constantine as Lemmy Caution. Apparently, there'd been quite a few Lemmy Caution films before this one, and Goddard basically appropriated the character and plonked him into this futuristic Alphaville as a way of paying homage to that whole genre of films. And it seems like he went on with the character in other ways too, but he's just the ideal kind of smoked out, million cigarettes finished, world weary detective energy, even though he's more of an assassin, to be honest. But his whole look looks like a PI to me, like a classic Philip Marlowe, Bogart kind of guy. He looks like he's not just lived 9 lives, more like 10 or 11 before the film starts. He's got a voice that's seen, like I said, a lot of cigarettes and a lot of whiskey. He poses as a journalist, and he's convincing in that too. He's journalists are pretty pushy. He's up for anything. This guy, where he's only just arrived in Alphaville, and he's already into a guy in his bathroom. Um, it's quite interesting, and then he casually shoots lots of people in this film, nearly like a Terminator. I did find it interesting the way that females are portrayed in this new society. They really are just there for the male gaze. There was a woman in a glass cage just there naked, pointing out towards everyone in this staircase. They seem to be like these pleasure models, nearly, in the hotels, where they've got the same lines. They keep asking, the different ones show up when Lemmy comes back to the hotel and ask him if he's tired, if he wants a bath, etc., etc. And one of them even says, like, she's a level 3 seductress. It's a very masculine, chauvinist view of the future, but it was 1965. So look, yeah, Eddie Constantine, perfectly cast for me, and does really well. Anna Karina is the actress playing Natasha, the daughter of Professor Von Braun. She has like an emotional awakening as the film goes on, and starts to show some humanity. She's provoked constantly by Lemmy Caution, and eventually breaks through to her, and she slowly kind of discovers what love and memory actually mean. She did remind me at times of Sean Young's character in Blade Runner. She could easily have been like a forerunner of the replicants that are used in that Ridley Scott film. Howard Vernon as Professor Von Braun is perfect. He's calm and rational, and terrifyingly convinced he's right. It's nearly like he started a cult in this futuristic society, and represents the danger of logic without any humanity, without any emotion. He gets around in these sunglasses, so you never really get to see his eyes. He's really just like a cult leader to me. It was an really interesting watch. It kept me captivated to the end. There's so many things going on, and I was just struggling to keep up at times, especially because Lemmy seemed to know what was going on, and eventually I had to stop trying to solve everything and just let it wash over me and experience it. That's like my go-to when I get lost in films, in particular. I did think that Alpha 60 was like a really early version of AI before AI, and strong comparisons to the HAL 9000 evil computer, obviously in Kubrick's 2001 that came out 3 years later. Also, early example of AI replacing human thought, and the data centers there feel surprisingly modern in a way, because that's a hot topic these days, of course. Data centers, where to put them, the resources they use. Are we relying on AI too much? Is it taking our jobs? Is it doing our thinking for us? All relevant questions. It also reminded me of the supercomputer in the film Rollerball. This film, just in its look, did remind me a lot of Rollerball, even though this was shot in black and white. Just the exteriors and the general look and feel of the society had some touchstones to that film. Obviously, emotion is a no-no. Love and poetry and crying are all banned. Everything's reduced to logic and control. People are being not assassinated. People are being executed for being irrational. And when you think about it, irrationality, or the right to be irrational, is one of probably the key things of being human. We all have our moments of irrationality, and this world is a world of because instead of why. It comes up early in the film. Lemmy Caution says, "Why does nobody ask why?" The answer is because it's a world of because. You don't question things. Everything is because. Everything is told to you. This is why we're doing it. This is the reason. So there's no need to ask why, and there's no encouragement to question anything. Everything's already justified before you've even thought about it. Language itself has been flattened out. A lot of casual violence in this film. The executions that I spoke of, they're very cinematic, or very dramatic, probably a better word. As Lemmy's trying to find Professor Von Braun, he comes to like an Olympic swimming pool area, where all the officials, including the professor, are watching from a viewing area as people are being assassinated whilst in a pool, and it's all done seemingly with synchronized swimmers in the background, and most of them are assassinated because of irrationality. Later in the film, we discover that another method is getting people to come into a cinema, being seated and then being electrocuted as the seats tilt up. Kind of reminded me, unfortunately, of the gassing that went on in the concentration camps. Not any direct sort of link to that, but it just seemed to have a vibe of putting people in an enclosed space for a different purpose, and then they're being wiped out all at one time. I love the way Goddard does his work in this film. Uses a lot of little tricks, like quick, really disorienting edits, to keep you off your feet. And towards the end in particular, there's lots of negative photography used, so it's like X-ray photography, and it fades in and out as Lemmy is trying to make his escape, and it really shows you that this is a world out of balance, and that reality is starting to feel unstable. Well, that's how it felt to me. And at the end, it really feels like the system itself is falling apart. I've already said that the film reminded me, aspects of the film remind me of Rollerball and 2001, but also elements of Blade Runner with the replicants, 1984 and Brave New World, just with that overall idea that emotion has been replaced by everyone agreeing or being conditioned to feel and think the same way for continuity, and that everything can be provided to you. There's no need to want things anymore. There's no need for love. And I've already said the Apocalypse Now memories that it invoked in me as well. There were some great parts in this. I really loved Lemmy Caution's phrase that he's on a journey to the end of the night. Typically French way of expressing things, but just beautiful. And a lot of the film seems to take place at night, which makes it feel kind of like a bit of a nightmare. Alpha 60, it seems like it's customary when you come to Alphaville that you get questioned, you get interviewed by Alpha 60, and the questions aren't what you expect. They're very existential. They're very philosophical and about life and about feelings. And Eddie Constantine just sits there, and again, it's like he knew what to expect. He's not put off by anything. He's unflappable. I've already talked about the set pieces at the swimming pool and the theatre, the executions. That's quite stunning. I did really enjoy the part where Lemmy's dismantling Alpha 60. Reminded me of when Keir Dallaire is pulling all the cartridges out of the HAL 9000 in 2001, and the way that Alphaville collapses at the end. It's all done really well. So I thought it might be one of the earliest sort of looks at a world where it's dystopia led by AI. I feel like the earlier Brave New World and 1984 were more political. Maybe there's obviously elements of political thought in this film, but for me, maybe it's just where we are in 2026, and most of us work with AI or have dealings with AI. That's in the forefront of our mind. But definitely this idea of cyber controlled societies. That's definitely something that's going to be in our futures, I think. And linked to that, emotion versus logic. You know, we're still human beings, of course, and maybe some of that humanity is being replaced by having logic at our fingertips all the time and not following our feelings as much. The film feels really ahead of its time in hindsight. Not the look of it so much, but the ideas that it's dealing with and the predictions maybe that it's making about the dangers of technology, let go and able to control large parts of our world. So I do think that this film, I think it is a cult film. It's often referred to. It was probably quite influential on later sci-fi cinema in particular, but all sorts of cinema, I would say, just because I know that people like Scorsese and other filmmakers were very aware of Goddard and were keenly interested in what he was doing, were inspired by him, and continued to check out his films even once they'd become successful. I just finished Robbie Robertson's posthumous book Insomnia, where he talks about the time that he spent with Scorsese in the late 70s after Taxi Driver had come out and they were making The Last Waltz together. And it was great hearing how Scorsese would screen a couple of films every night, generally from the 50s and 60s, French, Italian, European cinema. And he couldn't stop gushing about how influential it was, and presumably on his filmmaking as well. Is it a date film? Probably not. Not unless your date's deeply into existential cinema. If they are, more power to you and to them, because this stuff's great and really different to the sort of things that come out now. But yeah, it's probably a pretty bold move to take your date to a screening of Alphaville first up. I'd maybe wait a couple of dates in. Hangover film? Absolutely not. There's too much going on here. It's very abstract and dense. Needs your full attention. If you've got a headache, it'll make it worse, I would say. You wouldn't last too long. So do not watch this film with a hangover. Quite nightmarish in parts too. So yeah, don't recommend that. So look, I won't pretend that I fully understood everything that happened in the plot points of this film. I'm not sure that I'm meant to. I really did treat it like more of an experience than a linear structure and story. I am really in awe of the way Goddard creates an entire world without leaving Paris, and I assume it's Paris. That's just an assumption on my part, but I think he's very clever with his resources, and it really works. So I think this is a film I'll definitely revisit at some time in the future. Now that I've got the first watch out of the way, and next time I might be able to concentrate a bit more on some of the plot, and it won't be so jarring. But maybe that's a big part of the experience and why it works. So yeah, a lot more to explore, which I'm happy to do. So that's it. Alphaville from 1965, a great example of French New Wave cinema. Check it out if you can. I saw it on SBS here in Australia. It's also on Canopy. It probably pops up in other spots as well. Definitely in the US, it'd probably be on the Criterion channel and places like that. So well worth your time. Anyway, thanks as always for listening, and see you next time.